In October 1943, over the skies of Schweinfurt, Germany, a 22-year-old ball turret gunner named Michael Archangelo challenged everything he had been taught. Flying aboard a B-17 bomber, Archangelo encountered a German FW-190 fighter diving straight toward his aircraft at 400 miles per hour. Standard doctrine instructed gunners to wait until the enemy filled their sights, until they were within 200 yards, for maximum effectiveness. But Archangelo ignored the manuals. He opened fire at 1,200 yards, well beyond the accepted range. His machine guns roared to life, spraying tracers into the thin air. The German pilot, seeing the incoming fire, hesitated just for a second, but that second altered the trajectory of his attack. The enemy's cannon shells, which would have obliterated Archangelo's turret, missed by just 15 feet. They tore through the bomber's wing instead. Archangelo had survived, and more importantly, he had discovered something that defied military convention. Early fire could save lives. This discovery stood in contrast to everything the U.S. Army Air Forces believed. When the B-17 Flying Fortress was introduced, it was hailed as a self-defending behemoth, bristling with .50 caliber guns and designed to operate without fighter escorts. But the Luftwaffe quickly exposed its vulnerability. Early missions revealed that gunners were missing their shots, not due to poor aim, but because they were firing too late. The enemy closed too fast. By the time a German fighter filled a gunner's sight, it was already too close. The margin for error was less than a second. The fall of 1942 was brutal. The 8th Air Force was losing 4% of its bombers on every mission. Crews had to survive 25 missions to complete their tour, but most never made it. German tactics, particularly the Storm Group head-on attack method using heavily armed FW-190s, were devastating. American gunners followed their training, hesitated, and died. But a few men like Archangelo began to realize that hitting the enemy wasn't the only goal. Survival was. The logic behind early fire was counterintuitive. At extreme ranges, 1,000 yards or more, the odds of hitting a fighter were low. Bullet drop, deflection, and dispersion all worked against accuracy. But Archangelo noticed something that changed the game. When tracers lit up the sky, enemy pilots reacted. They flinched, they doubted, they adjusted. Sometimes they broke off entirely. This wasn't just about luck. Archangelo understood machines, ballistics, and the physics of flight. He realized that a .50 caliber round, even at 1,200 yards, still carried enough energy to damage a plane or rattle a pilot. The bullets didn't need to hit the cockpit. They only had to come close. Every fifth round was a tracer, and those bright orange streaks were terrifying. They signaled to German pilots, "This gunner is awake. This gunner will shoot early." That message alone could alter the outcome of an attack. After Archangelo's experience, he began to quietly share his insight with other gunners. Benny Goodman, Tony Rizzo, Earl Patterson. They all began testing the method. One gunner compared it to duck hunting. You're not aiming at the duck, you're aiming where the duck's going to be. The idea spread informally, from barracks talk to hangar-side discussions. No officer endorsed it, no manual included it, but results spoke louder than orders. The real breakthrough came during missions where bombers had been damaged and straggled behind the formation. Archangelo and others found that by firing preemptively at long range, they could deter attackers again and again. They weren't hitting targets, they were denying the airspace the enemy needed to operate. This area denial tactic meant that German fighters, especially head-on attackers, had to choose: risk flying into a cone of fire or disengage. The psychology behind this tactic was powerful. Luftwaffe pilots were brave, often battle-hardened from years of combat, but they were also rational. If a bomber was already laying down suppressive fire at 1,500 yards, why not attack another one that wasn't? Why risk damage from an alert gunner when time, fuel, and better odds were available elsewhere? Archangelo's idea reshaped the air war without ever being formally adopted. By early 1944, dozens of gunners across several bomb groups were using the method. Losses dropped noticeably. During Big Week in April 1944, the 8th Air Force sent over 1,000 bombers deep into Germany. Thanks to the early fire technique, loss rates fell from catastrophic to survivable. German pilots began reporting a wall of fire, tracers at impossible ranges that forced them to rethink every attack. Over time, the Luftwaffe adapted, trying rear attacks, using armor, launching mass assaults. But nothing fully neutralized the new threat. The American strategy had evolved, not through command decisions, but through the survival instincts of a few young sergeants who redefined what a gunner could do. Michael Archangelo's role in this shift was critical. Though others may have independently developed similar tactics, he was the first to articulate, test, and teach it deliberately. He didn't get a medal. He didn't seek glory. After the war, he returned to Philadelphia, married, raised a family, and worked in his father's shop. He died in 1998, largely unknown, but his discovery lived on. The early fire technique continued in Korea, Vietnam, and even in modern air combat doctrine. By the 1980s, the U.S. Air Force formally studied and implemented the concept as preemptive defensive engagement. Today, it's part of every advanced training program. Modern weapon systems like the Navy's Phalanx CIWS and the F-35's targeting logic apply the same principle: fire early, deny access, disrupt the enemy's plan. Some historians believe that this single adjustment shortened the war by 3 months. It kept bombers flying when losses should have grounded them. It maintained pressure on German industry, and it showed that innovation doesn't always come from generals or scientists. Sometimes it comes from a young man in a ball turret who simply wants to stay alive.